Welcome back to The Explainer. All right, we are jumping right into something completely mind-bending today. We're going to unpack an ancient thought experiment straight from the Buddha. And let me tell you, it completely flips our usual ideas about cosmic goodness and what it actually means to have true wisdom.
So, imagine for a second that you magically got a superpower where you could convince every single person on planet Earth to be perfectly ethical, perfectly kind, and flawlessly generous. Sounds incredible, right? You'd think you just won the ultimate spiritual lottery. But here's the kicker. According to the text we're looking at today, the Buddha argued that pulling off this massive, worldwide good deed is actually not the highest achievement. To figure out why, we're going to trace this whole progression of merit. We'll start with the limits of worldly good, look at the power of prajna, compare true versus fake wisdom, tackle the paradox of non-acquisition, and finish up with the ultimate Dharma gift.
All right, part one, the limits of worldly good and the cosmic scale of merit.
Now, the Buddha uses an absolutely unimaginable scale when he's talking to Shakra, the Lord of the Gods. He says, okay, teaching our one single world to practice perfectly good deeds, like the 10 wholesome ways, is definitely great. But then he scales it way up. What if you taught billions of galaxies, literally as numerous as the grains of sand in the Ganges River, to all be perfectly good? I mean, the amount of merit there seems infinite, right?
Well, this is where the Buddha drops a massive paradigm shift. Teaching infinite beings to be perfectly good, it actually only gives them temporary worldly happiness. Eventually, they just fall back into the cycle of suffering. But sharing even just a tiny fraction of something called the Prajnaparamita, that creates ultimate spiritual liberation. It's an entirely different level. So what exactly is this concept that's somehow infinitely more powerful than teaching an entire universe to be good?
That brings us to part two, the power of prajna and escaping the endless cycle.
The absolute key here is understanding this term, Prajnaparamita. It translates to the perfection of wisdom, and it's literally the absolute core of Buddhist philosophy. The text emphasizes that without this profound, non-dual understanding of reality, it doesn't matter how ethically perfect you are, you will remain totally trapped in samsara, the endless cycle of rebirth.
You can kind of see this as a clear spiritual hierarchy. Step one, good deeds, which bring worldly joy. Step two is deep meditation, which brings immense focus and peace. By step three, you might even escape rebirth entirely. But step four, supreme enlightenment, becoming a Buddha. The text says that is completely impossible without the perfection of wisdom. Prajna is the only vehicle that can get you to that ultimate destination. But here is where things get really tricky.
Section 3. True versus fake wisdom and the trap of similar prajna.
Just when you think, okay, I've got the goal figured out, the Buddha throws in a huge philosophical plot twist. He warns his audience that future generations are going to want to teach this true wisdom, but instead, they'll end up teaching similar Prajnaparamita, basically a counterfeit, fake version of wisdom. It looks and sounds incredibly convincing on the surface, but it actually derails your spiritual progress entirely. So what does this counterfeit wisdom look like? Well, similar prajna happens when you're technically doing the right things, but you're clinging to the concepts. Like if you obsessively teach about impermanence, or you try to grasp at emptiness like it's some tangible object you can hold on to, or if you're secretly seeking a reward for your practice, that's all counterfeit. True prajna involves absolutely zero grasping. None. It's total non-attachment to the concepts themselves. Which begs the question, how on earth do you practice something without grasping it?
This leads perfectly into part four, the paradox of non-acquisition, or knowing by not knowing. If you take away just one thing from this entire explainer today, make it this concept, non-acquisition. It's the radical letting go of concepts. It's realizing that true wisdom simply cannot be grasped, possessed, or mentally attached to. The very second you try to mentally own enlightenment as a prize, the moment you think, I have acquired wisdom, bam, you've just turned it back into a fake concept.
In real life, this means you have to radically let go of the whole shebang. When you give to charity, you can't cling to the identity of being the giver. You can't fixate on the receiver, or even the object you're giving away. And ironically, to actually attain wisdom, you have to let go of the very concept of wisdom itself. You have to act without any mental hooks attached to what you're doing. So if true wisdom is literally impossible to hold on to, what does the text consider to be the single greatest act of merit you could possibly do in the universe?
And that brings us to our final section, the ultimate Dharma gift, the highest act of merit.
The narrative concludes with this huge realization. The absolute highest act of merit isn't teaching worldly goodness to beginners, No, it's teaching this exact paradox of non-acquisition to an Abhayvartika. That's a very specific term for an advanced bodhisattva who has passed the point of no return. They are literally right on the verge of becoming a fully enlightened Buddha.
And the way the merit scales here completely defies normal logic. Teaching one world to do good deeds, that's a tiny drop in the bucket. Teaching infinite universes to be perfectly good, obviously a lot larger, but still finite. But teaching true wisdom to just one near Buddha, that completely breaks the cosmic scale. It goes off the charts.
Why is it so powerful? Because it sparks this unbelievable cosmic chain reaction. First, you share true prajna. Then, that specific bodhisattva awakens. Next, a supreme Buddha emerges into existence. And finally, because that Buddha exists, they end up creating the cosmic systems that will pull infinite beings out of suffering. You're basically planting the one single seed for a universe-saving tree. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we've got all the way from the limits of worldly goodness to the total mind-bender that is non-acquisition. And I want to leave you with this final, beautiful paradox to just kind of chew on as you go about your day. Can you do good? Can you seek truth? And can you practice ultimate wisdom without grasping at the idea of wisdom itself? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.